Hello, and welcome to another load of waffle from yours truly. I was asked recently by one of you a few questions about augments with regard to endgame gear, but I thought it might be nice just to say a few words generally on this subject because I know it's a confusing one for many people, and many are sort of left, including me, a year or two ago, thinking, well, what do I do with these? Where can they fit in? What can they do to help me? I think the basic answer is, especially with regard to the end game, they can be used to round out gaps in your gear. Things that you're missing. Um, Important, let's say on a caster, maybe spell powers or spell DCs, which is difficulty checks. I'm going to use my character fools here to illustrate some of the basics, some of the things that I think are desirable to have. Obviously, he's a caster, he's a cold druid. So, going through the gear here, we have two augment slots there. So that's with a Sapphire of Good Luck. The Good Luck, the Sapphires come in +1, +2, or +3, I think. And if you don't have any other source of good luck, I think there's some in the Shiradi tree you could pick up. Where else can you get good luck from? I think it's on an item or two as well now, but that's a nice one to have. It's a +1, 2, or 3 to all saves, so that's definitely worth having. And that's just a random drop in any chest, as far as I'm aware. The Globe of Imperial Blood comes from, I think it comes from the Epic Giant Hold Tor, one of the chests in there. Maybe the Black Dragon chest, but don't quote me on that. And that gives an exceptional +1 bonus to all stats. So that's quite a nice one to have, because that stacks with anything. I should probably mention about everybody asks, well, what stacks with what? Different bonuses stack with each other, but the same ones won't. So like if you see on these glasses he's wearing, we've got Evocation Focus 6, Insightful Evocation Focus 3. So those stack together to give a total of +9. But two Evocation Focus 6 items would not give you any more of a bonus than that one would. So that's the kind of thing we're dealing with. So going back to the augments, you can have diamonds, stat increased diamonds up to +14 now in the legendary content that drop. So can I find one? I think I've got one somewhere. Well, look there, we've got a diamond of con 12, so that could be upgraded to a 14 if I can actually find one. So in terms of stacking things, we could have let's say here we've got a con 12, we could actually have a con 14. We could also have some gear with Insightful Con 6, or a diamond from the store with Insightful Con 5. We can also get, like here on this Slaver's Crafted belt, you can see there we've got Quality Wisdom 3. So the quality, being a different one again, stacks with the other two. So we've got, where is the wisdom? There you go, look, there's a diamond of wisdom 14 there, which stacks with the insightful wisdom 6 on the goggles there at the top. And then we've got quality wisdom 3. I'm going a bit off the subject because these aren't augments, are they? But you can get them in augment form. So the stats go up to +14 on their diamonds, so they go in any slot. The clear diamonds go in any slot and can drop randomly in any chest in the game as far as I know. The insightful ones I think store purchase only, +5. But it's probably worth having those if you don't have it on your gear. If you're talking about one of your main statistics, like for the druid, the casting stat is the wisdom. So if I didn't have that on his gear, like here on the goggles, I would probably go for one of those insightful. So yes, all the diamonds you've got, every stat is available. Plus you've got all the skills. What would be an example of something? So for a caster, I've actually got spell sight on here on this belt. But if I didn't have that, you can get diamonds of spell sight. If you happen to be like a roguey type doing the traps, you can get diamond of open lock or disable device, that kind of thing, just to save you from having to swap in other bits and pieces as you're going through your questing to try not to blow up trap boxes. So there's that. Earlier in the leveling process, you can get sapphires of fortification. Now these come highly recommended, at least from me, for avoiding the spike damage from the critical hits from the opponents. From level 4 you can have a sapphire of moderate fortification, I think it's called, which gives you, if I remember right, 75% fortification, which is great at level 4. And from level 8 you can have heavy fortification, which is 100%, which is unbelievable at level 8. If you look on this item I've got here, the fortification here is only 142. That's on a maximum level or close to it. I think these are level 28, these slavers items. It says 32 because the augment I've got slotted in the bottom there is a level 32. But a fortification 100 at level 8 is insane. So the sapphire of heavy fortification, if you can get one and slot it on some gear that you use for leveling, is really strong. So going back to, I mean, this is sort of angled towards a caster because this guy is a caster, but you can see there in the blue slot, sapphire of false life. I should mention that the augments don't stack with your gear, generally speaking. So let's say my armor here, if that had false life on it, which it clearly doesn't, the false life here would not stack. But since I don't have false life, I'm using the augment slot to round out the gear and add myself 50 hit points, which is super nice. On the armor there's another really desirable defensive thing to have if you don't have it anywhere else. The sapphire of resistance, that's +11 to all saving throws. So super desirable to have if you don't have that natively on your gear. We've been through that one. Ah yes, the festive augments. Now these come from the special events, like the what's it called, the Halloween event, the night revels, or the winter thing that's just been. I can't remember which ones come from which event, but again, I was talking about things stacking together. So this festive one stacks with everything else. So as I explained, the druid's casting stat is wisdom, so this festive 2 gives him an extra 1 difficulty on his all his spells for the enemies to resist them. So that's highly desirable. You could also think about festive constitution 2 to boost your hit points if you've got a spare slot for that. Wisdom we've done, stats we've done. Right, so now we're going into some of the less common ones. For the casters, these topaz of greater, there are two. There's a topaz of a normal, like a topaz of transmutation in this case it would be, available from level 16 from the giant hold vendors in return for the relics that you get in the end chests of the giant hold quests. So if you've run that chain regularly, you will have plenty of those to trade for these augments. The level 24 version, which this is, gives a +2 to the difficulty check of the spell class, in this case transmutation. And you need also, as well as the epic relics, you need these commendation of heroism, I think, which come either out of the Caught in the Web raid or the epic giant hold one, which I think is called Fall of Truth. The other augment we've got in there, Epic Litany of the Dead, that comes from running the Mark of Death raid and gives another stacking bonus, a Profane 2 on all stats. There is some gear that gives Profane 2, so I would think it won't stack with that, but otherwise, if you don't have that on your gear, then that's a nice one to have or to work towards in the fullness of time. We've been through that one. Defense, another really useful one to have. So defense deals with the physical resistance rating and magical resistance rating. So in this case, 32 to both of them, which if you don't have it on the gear, really, really nice to have. Don't neglect that, even on a caster. So that's the equivalent of this transmutation one, +2 to the transmutation difficulty checks for evocation. My druid has 3 spell schools he would like to boost. The main one being evocation, because almost all of the druid spells are evocation. The transmutation is mainly for this one spell, but one that's on a very short cooldown that he uses an awful lot, which is the ice flowers. So that's why transmutation. Actually, the druids have just been given a new spell, the grasping thorns, which is also transmutation. So that's handy to have. And the third one, there is an illusion one somewhere. Where is it? There, Topaz of Greater Illusion. And that's just for this one spell as well, this Greater Colour Spray, to try and get that to hit a bit better. Okay. So where were we? We were on, evocation. So all of these Topaz of Greater come from the vendors in Giant Hold, available for either heroic or epic relics, which are given in the end chests of the quests in that chain. And in the case of the greater ones, you also need the commendations of heroism from either Caught in the Web or Fall of Truth raids. Master's Gift, that's a nice one to have to boost XP. That's a combination, let me try and remember, of the what's the Master's Dice thing called that comes from the Delira's tomb chain. The Voice of the Master and the Mantle of the World Shaper, which comes from the Ruins of Threnel chain. It's a reward, an end chain reward from the Ruins of Threnel, which nobody really would run otherwise, I don't think, but for that. So those two basically get put together to make this Master's Gift, and it's super handy because you can, rather than messing about then slotting your, swapping in your Master's Gift, your Master's Voice at the end of each quest, or in my case forgetting to do so, you've got this always on augment giving you a nice bonus to your experience without you having to remember it. So I like that one. Sapphire of Dodge, if you're like me and you're wearing light armor or even better no armor and you have quite a high dodge cap, you might get some mileage out of the Sapphire of Dodge. Another nice level of defense for your character, having opponents possibly missing you altogether. Healing amp, very important. If you don't have healing amp on, you would tend to have it on the armor if at all. You can see there's none there. And if you don't have it on the armor, I would say it's really, really desirable to slot it somewhere. So that's what I've done. The illusion, as mentioned already, for this greater colour spray. Where are we now? I think we've more or less covered everything that that he has. So like I mentioned, I've used it to plug gaps in the build and to kind of boost things up where they needed boosting. So with Topaz of Spell School to boost up the chances of my spells landing on opponents. And also sapphires of various, like false life. We've got defense for PRR and MRR. We've got healing amp, just to boost up the survivability of the build in general. On the weapons, I have a diamond of Dex 14. Dex wouldn't normally be too much of a thing for a caster, but this one uses evasion, so Dex for the higher reflex save is important for me. And on the shield, I have some magnetism spell power because I don't have it anywhere else, and the druid does have a couple of electric spells that he uses. We have this Storm of Vengeance and this one here called Lightning Storm, so that's why I slotted that. The other one, the Meridian Fragment, is nice. On the one hand, it's reducing the cost of maximized spells by 6, I think it is. And on the other hand, when you take physical damage, your spell power is boosted for a short amount of time. I don't like to make a habit of taking too much damage, but it's nice to have a boosted power if and when that does happen, which is far too often for me. That fragment, let me just refresh my memory. Read, cheat and look at the wiki. That fragment comes from the Fire on Thunder Peak chest, end chest, the raid in Thunderhome with the 2 dragons. And that's a nice one for a caster to have, but you have to have an orange slot for it to go in. So yeah, that for basically for any build, just rounding out the offensive and defensive possibilities, like I've done here. I'm trying to think of. No, I think in heroic it's the same thing. I would tend not to bother too much with the augments on the heroic stuff unless you are building a gear set with several lives in mind. Let's say you have a build you favour particularly. In my case, maybe the Acid Warlock, which I did numerous racial past lives with, and you create a gear set around that for every few levels, then yeah, by all means throw some augments in there. I should probably mention the storage of the augments. The augments, when they drop, they'll go, if you have one, they'll go into the yellow bag, the augment bag. The larger ones are available from the DDO store. there is a 15 slot bag that you get as a favour reward from the Ravenloft quest chain or expansion chain. So that's a possibility if you don't want to go through the store for a bigger one. What was I? Oh, I was going to say how you. So this is the augment item here in the bottom right of the inventory thing. Let's say we wanted to. You have to remove the item to be able to augment it. So we take that one off. Augment item. Oops. Throw that in there. So as we can see, we've already got one in there. It tells you what it is, what the level is, what it does. Now, if we want to remove an item, an augment, we can do that with a jeweler's toolkit, which are very rare drops in chests as far as I can tell, and rare on the daily silver dice roll that we get as well. That being the case, they are available as well from the store if you'd prefer to buy them for points. But that being the case, if you ever find yourself wanting to change an augment, like let's say I wanted to replace this Sapphire defense for a higher one, if there is one. I think there probably is a defense 36 one about, because this looks like it's level 28, not 32. So let's say I was lucky enough to find a 36. I would just slot the 36 straight over the top of this 32. I would of course lose the 32, but the 36 would go in there and happy days. If you absolutely want to keep the one that's in there, the only way to do that is with one of those jeweler's kits. But because those are so scarce, I tend to, unless I really want, like maybe with that Master's Gift that I've got down there, if I wanted to move that, because it takes quite a bit of making, I would in that case use a kit to extract that and put it wherever I wanted it. But in this case, I would just superimpose the new one over the old one and go like that, just accept to lose the old one. So that's how you slot and unslot an augment. You would literally just drag and drop the one you wanted. Don't we have an augment in here? There. You would drag and drop the augment you wanted. I'm not going to do it obviously because I don't want to do it, but it does come up with a confirmation screen, and then you just click yes and it's done. I should probably mention as well the colours, although that's fairly self-explanatory. If you look at the bottom of this one, we've got a blue slot and a colourless slot. The diamond augments can go into any colour slot, including colourless. Blue can take sapphires or diamonds. There are green slots like that one that can take either topaz, yellow, sapphire, blue, or of course the clear ones as well. I think that's pretty much covered everything. Yellow, obviously, topaz or clear. And then I think there's an orange one down here which can take meridian fragment, which is orange, or yellow, topaz, or a red one, the ruby. The red, they all fall into a general category. The red ones are offensive in nature. In fact, why don't I just open up the bank and you can see a good cross section to illustrate the point. So yes, the red ones are to do with elemental damages, be it spell power in the case of magnetism, impulse, radiance, all this kind of stuff, or extra damage on hits with a weapon. So we've got Ruby of Flame, 6d6 extra damage on hit, So all these Ruby of Acid, Ruby of Flame, this is to do with hits with weapons, with either ranged or melee weapons. So you would slot those into such a weapon. These here, these spell power ones, would go in what you call caster sticks, like come on, bring the inventory up. Like this here, that's referred to as a caster stick. In this case, force spell power. He's not actually swinging it as a weapon. He's using it to boost the spell power. So yes, rubies, spell power, and elemental damage on weapons. We've got the odd ones that are special. I'm looking for one in particular. Ah yes, Ruby of the Snow Peaks from the winter event. That's a particularly nice one, especially on lower levels. A chance to freeze targets in a block of ice, making them helpless. So I can definitely recommend that one if you're using it on a low level weapon for your true reincarnations. That's a handy one to have. I think that's as much as I'll say about them. So we know about the rubies, and we've got the topaz, which are elemental defense, and so yes, we've got all the resistances: cold, sonic, acid, all the rest of it. Now if you get to the end game and you want one that does most of them, there is a draconic soul gem, which I think that gives 30 on acid, cold, fire, and electric for one slot. And I think that comes from the Fall of Truth raid in Giant Hold. Draconic soul gem. But otherwise you've got the individual resistances if you want. Now many classes are able to cast the resist spell. My druid has it here. He chooses to cast them before there we go, like these here, resist electric. It just means, well, two things. First of all, you mess about at the start of the quest casting it. Secondly, if it gets dispelled for any reason during the quest and you don't happen to notice, you're without your resistance there for the rest of it. So yeah, we've got all the resistances. Then we've got the spellcasting school related ones. So we've got here Topaz of Necromancy, +1 enhancement to DC against Necromancy school. So these are these ones from the Giant Hold vendors, but again they can drop randomly, these as well. So that is just a standard level 16 one, giving a +1 bonus to the Necromancy school. If it was a level 24, you would see greater Necromancy. We've also got some of the newer offensive ones, but just be aware. We've got these damage. This is like the deadly stat on a weapon, and won't stack with deadly. So if you've got, let's say, goggles of deadly 4, this topaz of damage 4 wouldn't do anything for you. That's as far as I understand it. The swiftness one is nice. That's for the movement speed. Very nice to have. I think, yeah, there's a Sapphire of Snow Peaks speed from the winter event that's also usable from level 8, that also gives you maximum 30% movement speed from level 8 if you slot it into a blue slot on an item. So very nice for a character that is TRing regularly, because slow movement sucks. Wizardry to boost spell points. So yeah, the main body of these topaz seems to be resistances. We've got the odd special ones. We've got death block here, protecting from instant death effects. And the spell school ones, which we've already mentioned. Right, so Sapphire, these are the defensive ones, defensive related ones. Spell agility, I think, is a quite nice one. Yes, if you reduce. Oh yes, if you're in a, obviously my druid is a divine class, so doesn't suffer from arcane spell failure. But if you happen to be an arcane, like a warlock or a sorcerer, a wizard, then you will get this if equipping like shields, for instance. Large shield has 15% arcane spell failure. When you're at the cap, you can have a 15% spell agility to negate that completely, which is really nice, really useful. Armored agility is pretty nice, I think. Yeah, bonus to max dex on light, medium or heavy armor. So that's quite a nice one. False life we've already been through. Defense we've been through, that's the physical and magical resistances. If you're a melee or a ranged, you definitely want some accuracy on your gear. In fact, I might just switch over to Red, my ranger, in a second and go through some of the bits. I don't think he has too much, but we'll just mention some of the... That's that Sapphire of moderate fortification, which you can have from level 4. Very nice. These are the special abilities. So we've got Vertigo for trip, boost. We've got one that boosts the stunning ability. So if you have a character like maybe a monk that specializes in such attacks and you don't have any stunning on your gear, these kinds of things could be really useful. That's the heavy fortification one. I bet you could, if you have one of those that you don't want, you could get plenty of platinum, probably even some astral shards on the auction houses for that. I think we've just about covered it. Resistance for saves, very desirable. Good luck in various guises. And the healing amp that I've mentioned already. Oh, that's a nice one. Now that's a Undying Sapphire, and the legendary version. If you're a tanky character and you want to have a little bit of leeway, so you don't, if you take a heavy shot, you have a bit of leeway before being declared officially dead. This does that for you. Over 200 bonus to unconsciousness range, so you could fall prone but not die in some cases with this, and somebody, if they're quick enough, can throw you a heal and get you going again. I think that's about it for the Sapphire. We did Ruby, Topaz, and the Diamond. I already mentioned what those were. So we've got all the skills here: move silently, concentration, repair, heal. All those come as diamonds. Now the skills, as far as I know, don't come from the store. They're not available in the store, so they're only as drops. But they are transferable. So if you have friends in the game, or if you just have a look on the auction house every now and again, you might get lucky and find the one you're looking for. So those are all the skills, and mixed in with them. We've got the diamonds of strength, charisma, all the main stat diamonds. The highest those can go is now 14, dropping from the legendary quests in the game. Just a word on slotting these things. I've been caught out many times by this in the past. Just be careful with the level of the augment. Like, let's take one out at random. Oh, this dex 14. So if you hover over that, it tells you minimum level 32. Now let's say we were to slot this into a lower level item, it would suddenly make that item only wearable by level 32 plus. So if you were trying to use it to level, say, in a level 20 epic item, that would be a disaster because you'd no longer be able to use the item. You'd have to remove the augment or swap it with a different one to be able to use the item with your level 20 character. So pay careful attention to the minimum level of the augment before slotting it in. Generally, always try to match the the level of the item you're putting it into, there or thereabouts. I especially with leveling gear, I usually try to go a bit lower with the augment, a bit lower level than what the gear actually is, because boosting the level of the gear just for the sake of having an augment in it is almost never worth it, in my opinion, unless you're talking about end game gear, in which case go ahead. Right, I think that's pretty much it on that side of things. These augments are all transferable. So if you can find somebody willing to trade them with you, it's all good. They're not bound to account or anything like that. So just to close, I'm just going to swap out to my archer red to give the other side to this, because we've been sort of looking at it from a caster's point of view. We could just highlight some of the things that maybe melee or ranged might like to have, if it's going to let me log out. Come on, game. I'll whistle a happy tune. It's the same principle for for any character. The way I look at augments is just rounding out the build, just plugging the gaps that the gear has left. So in Red's case, it'll be the desirable things for the ranged character, and there are things generic to all builds, notably those sapphires, those defensive things, the healing amp, the defense one for the PRR and MRR, the resistance for the saves. So in Red's case, he's stacking dexterity because he's dex based, he's an archer. So we've got insightful dexterity there. Protection, I guess I just couldn't think of anything much more to fit in there. That's just a bonus to armor class, but his armor class is low enough that most things are going to hit him anyway. There's not one there. We don't have anything in there. Oh, this isn't going well, is it? Oh, insightful constitution we've got there. And that's an example of a skill one. So we've got Diamond of Spot 19 in there to boost the spot skill, so he can find. Why have I put that there now? I suppose he can see from further away the targets as well, which as a ranged is quite useful. Now that's a good one to have, the ranged power. Now there is I think a ring from the quest in the harbour. What's it called now? The thing that ends with the animatic. Good Intentions, I think it's called. That has a ring. Is it the Ring of Power? I can't remember. Something like that, which has 8 ranged power. So that won't stack with this topaz. But this particular topaz is available, I think, from the Randall Lyric chain of vendors located in the various expansion areas. So Ravenloft, Sharn, Feywild. There's one in each one. And that's quite nice to have to boost ranged power. Again, we've got the Festive Diamond from the special event, Festive Constitution. He should have Festive Dex somewhere as well. Master's Gift, again, you can see there at the top. Now, Sapphire of Greater Heroism is quite a nice one. I could have just used scrolls, because this character does have Use Magic Device, but to have it always on isn't a bad thing to save me messing about a bit. There's the Festive Dexterity in there as well. That's the Draconic Soul gem I've been talking about, so he has a bonus 30 to all his all his resistances, because he doesn't cast the resist energy. He's also got the Sapphire of Defense, and we've got Armored Agility there that I was talking about. Listen was for the Horizon Walker tree. There are several abilities in here which go off the Listen skill, like this one, Corner the Quarry, for instance. The saving throw allowed is affected by the Listen skill, and I don't think there's more than just that one in that tree, so that's why I put Listen. Where were we? Featherfall, the purists would say ditch that and do without, and just have a swap-in item when you want Featherfall. But I always seem to be falling all over the place when I don't have that, so I just put it in. What we got there? Diamond of Con. The big Con boost is a must on any build, so if you don't have it on the gear, throw a diamond on, the biggest one you have. And that one we already covered. So the desirable things for the ranged, or indeed the melee, Deadly, definitely. Now, suppose we didn't have Deadly on the gear, those topaz of damage I was showing earlier would do the job. So that would be nice. Also, on the off chance that we didn't have double shot on the gear, there is a topaz of double shot 8 that drops in Isle of Dread quests at random now. So that's a nice one to have. I think that pretty much... oh, no, I tell a lie. The ranged and melee weapon augments. There are a couple here worth mentioning. Deconstructor is a nice one, because that gives the most popular metal damage bypass. Things like the iron golems in Sharn and constructs and this kind of thing. I think most of them have this adamantine damage reduction. Deconstructor gets you around that if you haven't taken Pierce Adamantine in Epic Destinies. So that's nice. Ruby of Good is another damage reduction breaker. I think it's quite a popular one because quite a few things will resist damage if you don't have a way of getting around that. So that's why those two. I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, so the too long didn't listen version is augments are a nice way to round out your gear, filling in the gaps that that you think you should have, both offensively and defensively, that is not present for whatever reason on your gear. That's it. Over and out.